Okay, these are pipe Raymond windmill heads. We're redoing two of them. We decided to do two because once we get one going, we just want to follow up with the second one. This one over here is a little further along. We've got a ways to go on both of them, but as we go, we're going to try to keep you informed of every step of the process along the way. This one right here is the axle that goes on. The spokes go in here. The spoke hub was not in the right spot. We did get it in the right location, and then I put a little spot of weld right there. I understand a little spot of weld isn't for everybody, but for this application it works pretty good. What I'm trying to do is to keep the spoke hub from moving forward or backward. So a spot of weld went right here. Okay, this is the hub here that will fold and unfold the windmill head. This needs to move on this shaft very easy. I've got it polished up, and there will be a little lubrication on here by the time we're done, but that is what will happen. And back on this end of the shaft, this is the wheel that actually runs the pump rod up and down with this axle here, the pump rod wood right here. So this will be put on here, will be the next thing we do, and then once we get this all assembled, we will put it right up here on this, and we will be hooking up the pump rod and the connecting rod, and that's the next thing that we're going to be working on. Okay, these are the bearing hubs here that we're going to use. One of them goes here, and this one here, the application is for right here. But as you can see, there's no bearing material, and we do need to put a bearing material in here, whether it be babbitt, whether it be brass, copper. In this situation, this head is so old that we need to improvise and do what we feel like we need to do to create a source of bearing. So if you will look down here, this is a copper boiler. This is a copper boiler that I got at the salvage yard yesterday. And what I'm going to do eventually is I'm going to cut out a square, I'm going to pound it out, and it's going to go in here and be used as a bearing. And it's also going to be used on the other side of this bearing as well. So the next time you see this copper, it'll be all shiny and it'll be flattened out, and it'll be in here and it'll be used for a bearing situation, in a bearing situation. If you remember, this is the old copper boiler that we're going to use for bearing material. What we've done is we've cut out a piece like this here, flattened it out, and we are creating square pieces which will eventually be shaped to go in there, both top and bottom, and that will be our copper bearing that we're going to use for the bearings. Now, before we go any further, I want to say on this one here, we have put the ends on most of these spokes. The ends are going on, and as we get the ends on, we're going to go ahead and put some of the fins on and get started getting them on and getting them hooked up. And that's when the windmill head will really start coming together. Now I want to show you over here what we've done. We put the shaft, the drive shaft up here, we put it in place to make sure that it was all in line. If you look back here, we put washers in for spacers, and we've made it so it'll slide real easy. It turns real nice, and now that we know we've got everything in place, we are going to take the drive shaft back off, and we are going to put the bearing material in place so that it wears on the bearing material instead of the cast iron itself. And we'll be able to lubricate it, and it'll last much longer. There's the shaft and the flywheel. I have this crankshaft ready and prepared to weld. Okay, this is the finished product, and this is where it goes into the flywheel. And it goes like this. As you can see up there, it's got to fit in there and in there. We tap it in place. You can see where the bolt is protruding out the other side there. We tap it in and we'll have it. And then up here, of course, a shaft goes through and we'll have the pumping mechanism ready as far as the power part. And then over here is the shaft part. Pump rod part goes here. So, and we'll get to that in a little bit. If you remember, we used the copper from the copper boiler and we created sheet copper like this. Polished it up, and all it's going to be used for is a bearing to replace like a Babbitt bearing. And I will show what it looks like when we get it in place. All in place and around the shaft. That's the way it looks, and we do have it rolled so when it turns, it can go tighter and not looser. That is the way that we've done it. Now on the shaft, on this side, there is Babbitt on the bottom. I don't know if it can be seen, but there is Babbitt there. So we're not so worried about that one, because on the bottom where all the wires are going to be, there is Babbitt. But this side over here, there is not. So we needed to replace the Babbitt with something. If you really wanted to do it right, I guess you would just get it Babbitted. But we're using copper instead. And as you can see, we have it folded over to keep the copper from moving to the left. Otherwise, it'll just work its way out of there and you've got nothing. But being we've got it folded on the right side, that keeps it from moving left so it can stay in place and do its job. Now to put the cover on. My intentions are to put bolts through here, of course, and then lock nuts on it so it doesn't have to be so tight. We can make it our desired as far as what we want for pressure. So we'll get to the pressure we want, we'll put the lock nut on it, and we'll have it. So when I get it accomplished, I'll let you know what that looks like. Okay, you can see that the copper is in place. The shaft is ready. I have to make sure that this set screw here is tight. The lock screw is tight. For my own satisfaction, I put a spot of weld on the back to make sure that the key stayed in place, because it's going to be 40 foot in the air and I want to make sure that it's going to stay functional for a long time. All I have to do is grind the edge of it to get it to come loose, and for me personally it is a good remedy. Here we have Gary installing a spoke. We're getting 2 projects done here. Gary's on the last spoke. Wires looking good, looking real good. Got to get it in just the right spot so you got clearance to drill it. Ooh. There we go. I've decided I'm going to get the actual pump rod ready. This is the way I found it. This was broke. This I'm going to weld onto here after this is trimmed off with the torch, and of course the old pump rod and of course this goes on the end right here, and that will be up on the head of the pump jack. So that will be the next project. Okay, I do have part of the pump rod done. I've got the end welded here. And now this, which goes onto the pump rod, a standard pump rod, 7/16 or 3/8. That's going to be welded on there, and then it'll be ready to go when it's mounted onto the windmill. It'll be ready for use. Okay, here's the finished product, and of course this here will be attached to the rocker up on top, which is attached to the flywheel. There's the shaft there that's hooked to the flywheel. That's going to be hooked to the rocker. And I'll give you a shot of it when we get it completed here in a few minutes. Okay, here's the finished product. There's the pump rod. Goes up to the rocker. Rocker over to the connecting rod. Over to the crankshaft, flywheel, over to the shaft, which leads to the spokes, which leads to the sails, which we don't have on yet. Okay, Gary, turn it real slow so that we can get an idea of how it works there. There you go. And it works really nice, really nice. Very good. Good job.